Welcome to the Urban Affairs Program. It's time to get up for Urban Perspectives with your host, Pete Rhodes.
Thank you for joining us here on Urban Perspectives. I'm your host, Pete Rhodes. Today we spotlight economic development for diverse communities in the Twin Cities. Here's a fact. A study by Wallet Hub, a personal finance site, found that in Minnesota, the financial gap between whites and minorities is the biggest in the nation. Minnesota's diverse communities make up 40% of the population, but hold only 17% of jobs, and personal income has declined. Recently, a legislative working group on disparities drafted a wide range of proposals aimed at reducing economic disparities between white Minnesotans and people of color. My first guest was elected in 2008 to the Minnesota House of Representatives. In 2011, he won a special election with 61% of the vote to fill a vacated state Senate seat, and re-elected for a full term in 2012, representing Senate District 62. Today, he is the Deputy Majority Leader. Welcome to Urban Perspectives, my friend, Senator Jeff Hayden. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Pete. How are you?
Good,
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having the opportunity and the time to be here with us. I know your schedule is busy as you getting ready to embark on a special session, is it?
Well, just a regular legislative session starts March the 8th. A little late this year, but we're getting ready.
All right, well, great. Well, let's get right into it, Senator Hayden. As a member of the Capital Investment, Finance, and Health and Human Services and Housing, in your opinion, how much can our state do in tackling the economic disparities in the communities of color?
We can do a lot. The state has a $42 billion biennial budget, so that's over 2 years. If you factor in what the federal government gets us, it's well north of $65 billion. So, Pete, that's a lot of money that's being spent in Minnesota on things like fixing our roads. I noticed the Nicollet Mall today is all torn up. Well, that was $20 million of state money, along with the business community in the city, put that money in order to rebuild the Nicollet Mall. Those are jobs that people have, and we can ensure that everybody participates in jobs like that. There are projects all over the state that look like that. We also spend a ton of money on health care, on infrastructure. We're responsible for education, procurement. Just, the pencils that we buy and the paper and all of the things that keep our state government running, those go out often to vendors. Those vendors, we can make sure are diverse, have a diverse pool in order for us to help with this economic situation.
So that the legislative working group on disparities in creating policies as well can actually be effective in possibly combating some of the lack of jobs and the economic loss.
Yeah, it absolutely can. First of all, it's raising the issue to a level where everybody's now paying attention. This is going to be an all-in, all-out kind of tackling of this issue. It can start with government, but the business community, the philanthropic community, all has to really get in. The nonprofit community that often does the help and the training, the education community, we have to start to figure out from an education standpoint, how do we get these young people to get their basic education and then move on to a post-secondary option, which could be college or it could be a technical school. All of those things together, I think if we really pay attention and focus to that, get out of denial, I think that we can change this.
Now, we often hear about the problems that are centered specifically around North Minneapolis. In our district, in South Minneapolis, are problems the same?
I think that they are. There are issues in South and North Minneapolis. There are neighborhoods that are isolated with poverty and concentration of poverty. We have one of the largest urban Indian housing developments, Little Earth community, right inside of our district, that has a high level of poverty, like even probably more than what we see with African and African Americans. We have a burgeoning new immigrant community of Somalis and Latinos that we need to be able to get into the pipeline and get them working at a living wage. So there is a lot of work to be done. But there's work to be done in Rochester. There's work to be done in Wilmer. There's work to be done in Faribault. There's work to be done on the Iron Range. So all over the state, our communities are the growing population, and we need to get them into the workforce.
Well, you just talked about there's needs in all communities. communities. So as we look at how will equity and employment and income and business development affect the whole state, bringing that up, you would say, would do what for our state?
Well, first of all, our state is growing, but the growth is in communities of color. So we have, an old professor said that Minnesota is getting grayer and browner. So that the folks that are kind of been in the workforce are usually white Americans that are getting grayer and they're starting to retire. The group that's going to backfill are going to be people who look like you and I. They're going to be new immigrants, they're going to be people of color. So it is imperative that we put those folks in the workforce. In order for us to keep this great state, we're #1 in business. We're one of the greatest states in the nation to live. And for us to stay great, we're going to have to make sure that people of color are in the workforce.
I see. Now, what is your agenda for creating consensus and support, so to speak, to close all these economic gaps? I know you sit on committees and you're constantly out there pushing. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, I think one of the things we got to do is we have to create things like small business and economic development. So one of the things we can do is to train entrepreneurs. We've seen it in Lake Street in our district, University Avenue, Payne Avenue, where African and African American people, Latino and Asian American, each street is another place, where we've created opportunities for people to own their own business. We think that that's awfully important, not only for them to create and generate wealth, but also so that the young people can see that it's possible. We also have to get our folks trained.
Yes.
Right now we have an issue with graduating kids. Kids of color are not graduating at the rate that they should. So we have to focus in on the education system, make sure that these kids have the basic education, and then we need to really get them the training that they need. I don't care if it's University of Minnesota, our Minsky system, Summit OIC, Dunwoody, but we need to get them there. Whatever people want to do, right now you usually need some extra training in which to do so. The last thing we really need to do is we got to look at this issue of criminal justice reform. And we got to figure out how to make sure that we're not disproportionately putting young people in jail, giving them felonies in which it makes it awfully hard for them to survive in society. So things like Ban the Box, which Senator Bobby Joe Champion passed, continue to push this issue of felon voters' rights because people need to be part of it. Working with things that really target young people and keep them out of harm's way. I think that that's fantastic.
Well, Senator Hayden, you are on the forefront all of the time. We see you here, we see you there. Continue the great work that you're doing on behalf of not only our community, but the great state of Minnesota, and we thank you for being here, my friend.
Well, I appreciate it, Pete. This has been a fantastic opportunity.
All right, great.
Thank
Senator
you.
Jeff Hayden.
All right.
All right. Weekly here on Urban Perspectives, we present Shining Stars, highlighting people, places, and events that contribute to the vibrancy of the urban community. And this week's Shining Star Spotlight is an Urban Venture Act 6 scholar studying secondary education and history at the Augsburg College. He's a musician, writer, and youth mentor whose ultimate goal is to be a teacher in his community. Meet our Shining Star, Destyn Land.
My name is Destyn Land. I'm a history and secondary education major and a youth and family ministry minor at Augsburg College. Dare to Dream was all about inspiring youth in the community to dream. And that comes from, if you look at the media and how people of color are portrayed, it's kind of about going against all of that, so it's not limiting your dreams and knowing that there are people of color who do so many different things, and it's all about inspiring those youth who come from these inner city neighborhoods to dream. Act 6 is a scholarship initiative partnered with Urban Ventures, which pretty much believes in taking leaders from the community and investing in them so that they can use their degrees to give back to the community. It's a full need scholarship, and there's out of 215 applicants, I was one of 27 who were accepted. Well, to me, I think working with youth is a very reciprocal cycle. So although I'm doing a lot of pouring into them, they're also doing a lot of pouring into me and encouraging me to even be the best example. It pushes me to go even harder in my academics and every other area of my life to show them that they can do it too. Ultimately, I want to be a junior high or high school teacher in an inner city public school in St. Paul or Minneapolis. After that, I want to get my master's in educational leadership and become a principal. And after that, I want to start a school program that teaches inner city youth professional skills, because I think that if you don't really know how to interview, don't know how to have a good resume or how to give a good handshake, how to make eye contact, you're kind of set up for failure. And I felt like that was an area that, unless you had parents who were working in like corporate America, you didn't really get a chance to learn these skills. My name is Destyn Land. I am a student at Augsburg and an Act 6 scholar, and you're watching Urban Perspectives.
Thanks, Destyn. My cousin, I'm glad to say that. Join me next as I talk with the Executive Director of the African Economic Development Solution. Meet Jean Gelgelu here on Urban Perspectives. My next guest has experience at managing human relations and is a bilingual leader who performs well in diverse environments. He is the current executive director of the African Economic Development Solutions, whose mission is to build wealth within African immigrant communities. Please welcome Jean Gelgelu to Urban Perspectives. Jean, I got it right that time.
Yes, it did.
You know, we had a chance to see each other at the recent celebration of MLK, and you sit on that commission, and so thank you so very much for having me on board there. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about the African Economic Development Solutions. When did it start, and why did you start it?
African Economic Development Solution started in 2008 when we had economic downturn.
Yes.
And at that time when a lot of people need help.
Mm-hmm.
So that when we started, when big is high and when
the need was the most.
Need is the most.
Yeah, yeah. Because that community is really growing in leaps and bounds, the African immigrant community. I think they comprise, in the communities of color, a major portion.
Yes, the number of African immigrants in the past couple of decades is doubled or quadrupled.
Wow, that's interesting. Now, how effective has your organization been in helping the people in businesses? I've researched a little bit. It looks like you're doing very well over there, and particularly in the African immigrant communities, to generate the wealth that your mission states.
AEDS, African Economic Development Solution, has been effective in creating wealth within African immigrant communities through our programs. One is we do business development, which is micro entrepreneur training, business consulting. We work on a loan, home ownership program. And also what we created through those business development activities, we created a placemaking, creative placemaking, Little Africa, a cultural corridor that we created to create visibility for African immigrant communities.
Now, I was going to ask you about that. I saw that, and it looked interesting. Of course, I saw where a lot of individuals graduating. You make a big deal out of it, which it is. The corridor is it located in a certain location here in the Twin Cities?
St. Paul and on St. Paul Green Line, University Avenue and Snelling area to the north side, that were a handful of African immigrant businesses located.
I see.
We don't have Chinatown here.
Okay.
But what we are envisioning is creating a cluster, creating cluster of businesses, and through our technical assistance and the beautification of the facade improvement.
I see. Now, do you also step outside of economic development, Jean, in terms of your education to the immigrant communities, say, for instance, civic involvement and other areas?
We do somehow in a program that heavily we involved. One example is last year, 2014, we reached out to African immigrant in partnership with Concordia, Dr. Bruce Corey,
yes,
who we partner to do the first African market study research.
Yes.
Reached out to partner with a lot of African immigrant communities to do the market potential, which is almost near to 2 billion purchasing power in Minnesota.
Yeah, and I note also in that we did a conference with that group at the Capitol, stating that their involvement in the civic involvement here in the Twin Cities and the state was rising as well.
Yes, yes. I want to mention that because And that one of the question was that how many percent of African migrant engaged in voting
Exactly.
and all, and a large number responded they are either volunteered, they either voted,
Exactly.
they either involved in large number.
Yeah, yeah. So what is the future for the African Economic Development Solutions? What are you looking for goals, say, in the next few years?
Our goal is to strengthen our programs, business development training, consulting, and we want to add a portfolio of loan so we can lend to African immigrants. Our research show that above 65% of African immigrants not getting loan fund.
I see.
Have a difficulty of getting loan fund.
That's large.
So we want to develop our loan fund. And also we want to strengthen Little Africa. So strengthen simple and explore other area where we can replicate.
Yes.
Same. Little Africa is about creating place for people, a place where people thrive.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great job, Gene. I wish you all the best moving forward. I certainly want to support any and everything I can with what you're doing over there. Fantastic job. So keep up the great work.
Thank you.
All right, Gene, stay right where you are. And coming up next, we'll meet a leader whose mission is to fuel and guide returning citizens to a new path for healthy and successful choices in life. Meet Dr. Thomas Adams. He'll join me next here on Urban Perspectives. Welcome back to Urban Perspectives. Our next guest's life's mission has been to provide leadership and service to his community through his work at various community organizations. He's currently the president and CEO of Better Futures Minnesota, a social change enterprise that fuels and guides men's desire to turn their lives around and walk a new path for better health and success. It's my pleasure to welcome to Urban Perspective my fellow monitor, Dr. Thomas Adams. Thomas, how are you doing today?
Wonderful, thank you. Thank
Glad you
you
could be here with me. As I was mentioned off camera, you have been really involved in this community since your return, and we're much the better for it. So thanks so much for all that you do.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Let's start when did you realize, Thomas, that your life mission would be in the service of creating opportunities for social change in our communities?
Well, Peter, I wish it was that easy. I'm still trying to figure out what my life's mission is. I
Yeah.
think that's the beautiful thing in life.
Yes.
But I know that I've been called to serve people, and I knew that from a very young age. I'm proud to be a Minnesotan. I go back 5 generations, and we have a long history of serving this community and loving the community, and really looking to create an environment where everyone can prosper and be better. So it's in my DNA.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's great. Now, how does Better Futures Minnesota differ from other social nonprofit organizations in our community?
Well, Pete, I think on 2 different separate points we differ. The first one is we're a social enterprise.
Okay.
So we have 4 lines of business, and we earn revenue to offset the amount of revenue I have to raise from the philanthropic community, the government, and individual donors. So that's the first piece, is we earn over half of the income that comes into Better Futures.
Oh, okay.
The second piece is Better Futures focuses on 4 Ps. And the first P is what most nonprofits focus on, and that's participants.
Right.
You want to change the participant, and I call that magic dust.
Okay.
So I've been in nonprofits for 25 years, and we all do our form of magic dust. But after that, if you don't address the other 3 Ps, which are perceptions, policy, and practices, you can do all the magic dust you want. But if those other 3 conditions aren't changed, then it's hard for people to leave out of your organization and walk towards a path of prosperity.
I see.
So we really focus on that. It's in our DNA at Better Futures as well.
Now, what programs, as you talk about the organization, do you do for these individuals who come through?
So we're a 2-year model. We focus on housing and worker readiness and employment. That's the first 2 things we do when men, and we serve all men, come out of incarceration. The first 2 kind of bedrocks: provide them a place to stay and provide them with employment or skill training to get employment that comes into, so they can get money into their pocket. The second 2 pieces we do, we focus on health and wellness. So one of the best kept secrets is all of the health and chronic issues that men who come out of incarceration have. About 20% of our men come to us with traumatic brain injury.
Really?
We have 40% of men who have hypertension, diabetes, early stages of prostate cancer, and then that doesn't even get to the behavior health, the chemical health, and mental health, and the traumatic experiences, in some cases lifelong, that the men come to us with. So that's the third thing we do, is really focus on health and wellness. And then the fourth piece is, we call it life skill coaching. Some people call it intensive case management or care coordination, but the ability to have a mentor 24 hours a day, 365 days a year,
that's important,
to help men walk towards their goal, of what we call a prosperity plan.
That is so important, to have someone that walk that next journey with you.
That's right.
That's great. Now, who are some of the partners? I know you work with a lot of individuals that Better Futures work with to create these important opportunities for these returning citizens.
We have loads of partners, and I would be, I'll say right now, I'm not going to be able to mention all of them.
Okay.
But certainly the state, the county, and even local government, city, are strong partners in providing contracts for us to do the work that we do. But then they're a vendor. They purchase our services, our lawn care services, our property maintenance services, our appliance recycling services. We have a bunch of community partners, Turning Point, Northport Health and Wellness, Beacon, Summit Academy, just on and on.
Yeah. So, Thomas, what are your goals moving forward? You've done a marvelous work thus far. There's a lot more to do. What is your goals over the next few years?
So we're entering our 9th year of operation, and my goal over the next 3 years is that Better Futures Minnesota becomes a primary employer of many people who are locked out of prosperity in our society, locked into a cycle of dependence on prisons, shelters, general assistance. And so we want to employ, our goal is to be able to employ about 100 men a day, men and women. Right now we're employing about 20. And so that's a substantial leap over the next couple of years, but we want to be a destination place for employment for people who are looking to get their a leg up and back into society to prosper.
I see a smile on your face, Thomas. How has this affected you in the few minutes, a few seconds or so that we have? How has this really affected you?
It's what I do. So it's wonderful to have your profession and your passion and your practice line up. And I'm in a good space right now.
Yeah, well, you show it, and the work that you do is fantastic. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks, Pete.
I'd like to thank our guests and you for getting up with Urban Perspectives. Visit our website at urbanperspectives.tv for information on our guests and where you can find links to previous broadcasts. And like us and post your comments on our Facebook page. And remember, there are so many amazing people and positive stories in our cities. You can watch for them right here on Urban Perspectives. Now enjoy the photos of the week featuring the Twin Cities Black Employee Network Gala. I'm Pete Rhodes, and I'll see you next week.